Okay, hello, and welcome to the latest edition of Getting There, eSchool News Conversations with Tech Directors, focusing on their solutions during the transition to remote learning and other aspects of reacting to the global pandemic. My name is Kevin Hogan, I'm your host, and with me today, Phil Hintz. Phil, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Phil, you and I know each other for a long time. You're a longtime advisor at my time with Tech and Learning, spoke at a lot of our events. I know you're also heavily involved with the COSN organization and your local state level organization that maybe you can talk a little bit about. But as we speak today, you are in a new role, and maybe you can kind of start us off talking about that and where you are and what the district and what it's all about.
Sure. Well, as of 5 days into this new role, I'm the new Director of Student Information for Barrington School District 220, which Barrington is a suburb of Chicago, a western suburb of Chicago, made up of about 9,000 students, maybe a little more than 9,000 students, kindergarten through 12th grade, 12 or 13 schools. I'm still adding those up right now, but in a new role, it's kind of like the CIO, being information specialist. So it's not the director of technology, it's not the CTO position anymore, but it's a different role that allows me to do different things than I've done in the past. For the past 14 years, I was in the CTO role, and I was having to manage all of technology. Now I'm only managing an aspect of technology for the school district, which is pretty awesome. I would consider it 1/10 of the job that I used to have to do, yet it's at a much larger school district than I've been in the past. So the other 9/10 are made up pretty quickly. So.
Yeah. So the past few weeks, I've been speaking to your colleagues about what they've had to do to just basically keep things together after the spring break and try to get kind of lit towards the end of the school year. Mm-hmm. You're kind of in a unique position being 4 days in at a new, so you're just kind of facing forward. Sure. So I was thinking that you might have some interesting perspectives there. Give us a fly on the wall in terms of both the day-to-day and maybe some long-term strategies as we look forward to what the fall is going to bring.
Right. Well, being in Illinois, which as of the time of this recording, a lot of things are happening in the southern states. But Illinois has taken a cautious approach to reopening and across the board. We're in what we call phase 4. Phase 5 would eventually be a vaccine for COVID-19. So phase 4 is pretty darn close, and we haven't had to reclose, and our numbers continually go down every day. So that includes Chicagoland and everything. So by people wearing masks and doing all the things that everybody doesn't want to do, but is doing it for the good of the cause, we've achieved the results we've hoped to from way back when. That being said, the state of Illinois released approximately 2, maybe 3 weeks ago at the most, guidelines for reopening school for the fall of 2020, the 2021 school year. And so those guidelines came out. It was about a 60-page document. Funny thing is I talked to a tech director in Alabama, Stacy Royster, I believe her name is, and she actually said, hey, the document we got from our state of Alabama actually points to the Illinois document. So apparently it's being used as a model for reopening schools. From that, we've had to customize, obviously, and make it fit for our school district. And so we've made the call, and we're about to put out a survey as of next week. Survey out to our parents. We've already surveyed our parents in the spring, asking them, hey, how do you feel about going back to school? What are your thoughts? And, do you want to send your kids back? Are you scared to send your kids back? And from that survey, we've realized that about 80% of our parents want their kids to be in school next year. So that still leaves another 20%. So now, for planning purposes, we need to send out a survey next week that basically fine-tunes that and says, okay, are you or aren't you sending your kids to school? And if you are, if you have multiple kids in your family, are some of those kids going to stay home? Because maybe that one size fits all doesn't work for your family. Maybe you have a child with special needs or special health concerns. and you want to hold them back, but your other kids, they can go. Or maybe they're younger children you want to hold back, and the high school kids you want to send because you have no problem doing that. So we need to know that for every single child. That coupled with the other information is, okay, if you are sending your kids to school, are you comfortable with sending your kids to school on a district provided transportation, like a school bus or a school van or whatever? So we need that decision process so we can plan our routes and plan who's going to be riding and not riding, and how many buses we're actually going to need in service all the time. Then we can plan the social distancing on that bus and all of that. So those two pieces of information are critical right now for us. And what will ultimately happen, Kevin, is, if a parent says, you know what, I don't want to send my child to third grade, and my child was supposed to have Miss Johnson, for example, for her third grade teacher, but I decided I didn't want to send my kid to school for in-person, I want virtual instruction instead, then we as a school district are going to say, well, your child is not going to be in Miss Johnson's class because she's teaching all the in-person kids. You're going to have teacher XYZ because they are the virtual teacher, if you will. So yeah, we're going to run kind of a blended learning or blended schedule where the kids that have the parents who have opted out of instruction, in school face-to-face instruction, parents that have opted out of that will still get a full instruction by a teacher. It'll just be virtual, but it may not necessarily be the same teacher that they thought they were going to have in the first place.
Right. So while this is giving a flexibility to either being remote or being in person, but there will just be restrictions in terms of which faculty. So it's not every classroom's going to have a camera in it. You can go into Miss Johnson's or not. Right.
It's not going to be that.
Talk a little bit about the differences between secondary and primary when it comes to this sort of stuff. Is it at the high school level, is this an easier task than, say, the second graders?
It will be. We are fortunate. We are a one-to-one iPad district. We're very fortunate that every student has an iPad. Every student has online access, whether we provided it or not. So we've crossed that hurdle through the course of this last semester, obviously through the spring. So we know who has connectivity. Everybody has connectivity now. So a lot of schools can't say that. They're working on that process. So we know we can deliver a virtual instruction versus a non-virtual instruction. That being said, one of the big issues is first-time kindergartners or first-time students in our district. We expect that some of our parents are going to say, I'm going to hold off a year because right now in Illinois, it's not mandatory that you send your child to kindergarten. And so they can hold off, there's not a mandatory age to send to kindergarten. Eventually they'll have to go to kindergarten, but they can hold off a year. They can hold them back a year if they choose. So we may end up having double the amount of kindergartens next year, section-wise.
Right.
Other than that, upper grades beyond kindergarten who have never done school before, much less virtual school before, all the other grades have at least experienced this last semester and beyond. So, so ultimately it ended up, I'm sorry, I had somebody at my door.
No, that's okay.
So the difference between, elementary and high school, it's going to be easier for high school. They're used to it. So
talk a little bit about how you plan to assess students remotely versus in person. Is that going to be a sort of difference?
Well, and that's one thing that the state of Illinois put their foot down on, and that is they want as rigorous of education, whether it be virtual or not. So no longer, we were able to get the waivers in the spring for pass, fail, and that sort of thing. No grades necessary, or whatever grade, if you're in high school, whatever grade you had going into the pandemic, you can only raise your grade. You can't go any lower.
Yeah.
So that's how it was. But now this next school year, it's going to be, hey, you're either virtual school or non-virtual school, and all the rules are the same after that. All the assessments, as far as we know, are going to be the same. It depends on, obviously, in high school level when they start taking some of the college entrance exams, the AP exams, and that sort of thing. what that's going to look like, if that's going to be virtual or not, or what they're going to allow. But as far as we know, school should be as rigorous and graded the same, regardless if it's virtual or not.
Yeah. A little bit earlier, you said the phrase that school's no longer one size fits all. Do you see any positives out of that new reality? I mean, I know for a long time you have been an advocate for the use of technology in distance learning. I'll always remember you had that video about the virtual snow day, and the advocating for that sort of learning doesn't have to stop just because you can't get to school. And where you are, there are times where you can't get to school for several days, right?
Right.
So have you seen any positives come out of this, just even in terms of that recognition at a grand scale for the things that you've thought about for years?
Obviously teachers have had to kind of reboot and do things a little differently and get comfortable with things that they normally weren't comfortable. One of the positives is they've all had to embrace technology whether they like it or not. And they still may not like it, but they still have to do something with it. If they're going to continue to be an educator in our district, they're still going to have to adapt. And that's one of the nice things about what we're choosing to do with virtual versus in school is we're going to take advantage of the teachers who are really good at virtual learning. We're hoping that those are the ones that are going to step up to the plate and say, I'll take the third grade class that is going to be all virtual instead of, so we're hoping that we can, improve upon that. When I said one size doesn't fit all, that type of thing, the rigor has to be just as important. But back when I was doing snow days, virtual snow days, one of the things we told teachers back then was to basically think outside the box. Think outside the four walls. So for example, if you're teaching a math lesson and it requires fractions, for example, a virtual lesson could lend itself to the materials at home, which could be chocolate chips and measuring cups and flour and hey, we're going to produce a chocolate chip cookie, and that's part of the lesson, but we're going to learn math in that process.
Right.
And so that's really an opportunity to have a flexible learning environment in the virtual sense. Obviously, as an in-person, we're always trying to have flexible learning environments and really be able to tailor every student's education to their unique needs. But virtual, we also want to kind of think that way and then take advantage of the manipulatives and the things that are not typically in schools. For example, shoveling snow gets your aerobic heart rate up, so therefore that could be your PE class.
Right. How about when you look forward? And so, best case scenario, things go back to normal. If not this year, then next year. How many of these new technology setups do you think will remain in place? I mean, do you see these things as a stopgap, or is this moment where we really truly do reinvent things?
I honestly believe it's a reinvention, if you will, a revolution in some ways. I mean, if you look to higher education, Harvard just the other day made the determination that all classes will be online, and if freshmen want to come on campus, they can come on campus, but they're still not going to attend an on-campus class. They're still going to have to do it virtual, whether they're sitting in their dorm room or sitting back at home. I think we're going to see more of that, and I think that's a positive, because as you think of the unique learning needs for every student, and that includes social and emotional learning, I think we have a unique opportunity to really meet the social and emotional needs of students in a different way, and be able to supply them with the resources, whether it be virtual or in person. We can really tailor every student's education. I've always been a proponent of every student needs an IEP. They all need an individual education plan, whether they are special education students or not. We should be doing that for all students. Every teacher should be doing that. And that's a tough job. I totally get that, is to act as though you're the teacher of one all the time. And now you've got 30 of those ones, but you're still teacher of one 30 times.
Yeah.
Or whatever the number is that you have in your class. I really think that this allows for that to happen, allows for that differentiation to truly happen. We always talk about differentiation of instruction, but this is forcing the issue.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's kind of like personalized learning on steroids, right?
it really is. It truly is personalized for a change.
Yeah.
Not just personal devices, but personalized delivery and acceptance of it as well.
Yeah. What about is there a change in dynamic with parents? I mean, they've all kind of become instant teaching assistants, right?
Yeah, that's we've seen how that's played out thus far, and it's been real stressful for a lot of parents, and them not knowing whether they're have a job or not. And those that do have a job, they're doing it at home in front of their kids, side by side with their kids. That's obviously the new normal that I think you're speaking of, and that's still yet to play out on how that's going to be accepted and possibly the new future. I have talked to a number of parents who said, even though I kind of hated the idea of having to be my child's teacher at the same time, the time that I've had with my student and seeing what they go through on a day-to-day basis, and the time that they've seen what mommy and daddy do on a day-to-day basis, has been really an eye-opener on both sides of the coin. I think some parents are enjoying that fact that they've had more time with their kids. So that's kind of interesting. I saw a tweet this morning talking about, I think it was Jamie Kasich that mentioned it, about a new profession out there that's going to be really big, and that is dogs or animal therapies out there, because our animals who are used to seeing people go and leave for work all day and then come back, and they're used to not seeing their people for 8 hours a day, now they're seeing them. And so now they're going to have to go through therapy when and if those people go back to work.
Right.
So
right.
I think it's the same thing with kids in some ways. As we go back in 2021 school year, as we return to school, as our president is pushing really hard, that's going to look different, and everybody's going to respond differently. This is still yet to play out. So.
Well, Phil, I really appreciate your time. Sounds like you have some really great stuff going on at your new district, and I hope you don't mind if I follow up with you as the school year begins.
Sure, I would love it. That'd be awesome.
Great. Thanks again.
Thanks.